These are some of the Dark Age landmarks of Daylesford in Gloucestershire. We're only a few miles from Swell where we were on the last video. Arest on Bladena be western tuna, and be northern and long tha sitches to Bayanwella. Of Bayanwella up to Kinges fair at Stretta, and long Stretta to Dunaman's trackways, of Dunaman's trackways on long Stretta est to Nanena Berge, of that Berge west to Barben Berge, of them Berge eft into Bladena besuthen Tuna.
Where be that blackbird too? I'll know where he'll be. He'll be up that wurzel tree and I'll go after he. He sees I sees he. Bugger if I don't get he. With a great big stick I'll knock him down. Blackbird I'll have he. Tra-la-la, tra-la-la. How's your father? That was an old 19th century song by W. Ersels Esquires, and it is the anthem of Bristol. It's a song about a blackbird stealing wurzels from a tree. But I'm in Adelstrop. I'm only really climbing Adelstrop hill to get to the Chastleton Barrow. I'm going to go and have a look at that, and also the Anglo-Saxon charter of Daylesford, Dæglesford, which means the ford of Dale. And notice I'm not saying Dale. The textbooks say I should say a hard G, but Dag comes out as Day. That's how it's pronounced, and Daigle comes out probably in modern times as the men's name Dale. So it's the Ford of Dale, Ford of Dales, and there's 4 charters showing the transformation of the estate. It's slowly being chipped away. And there's some interesting landmarks in it, one of which is Chastleton Barrow. Now there's 4 charters for Daylesford, and one of them's in Latin, and it shows a part that isn't. It is identical to the one that shows the 19th century boundary of the parish of Daylesford, which we can easily trace. But this one is interesting because it also includes Chastleton Barrow. It describes some interesting stuff. There's it goes up it says go up a hill in Latin to Susie Brem, which the landscape.arc.uk call it. Brem might be Briga, which is not an attested Old English word, but it probably means Susie Hill. But what Susie means is another problem as well. But it calls it what is up here an herbs antiqua, and that means antique city, the old city, which is tempting, isn't it? And secondly, it then says go along in English, in Old English, Aldan Cestel Byrig, which is the old stone building fortification, which is obviously Chastleton Barrow. By the way, the Barrow is not necessarily a misnomer. It's not a barrow. It's an Iron Age hill fort. But but the words for hill fort and barrow get mixed up in the Middle Ages, and they even get mixed up in the late Anglo-Saxon period. Nobody seems to care which one gets used. When it's in Old English is Byria and Bercha or Berche, and that's just so close to each other. When they have a semantic link, they're both earthworks. Why the Old English chose to have two similar sounding words for them when they do different things. We don't do that in modern English. But yes, an Iron Age hill fort, so I doubt if we'll see any ancient city up here, but let's see what we can see. I'm in Chastleton Barrow. In the Saxon charter is Aldan Cestel Byrig, and the old stone, the old pile of stones that is a fortress, something like that. And Castell is related to and that Cur and Chur, the village down the road calls itself Chastleton. So around here, they must have pronounced it Chur. Other places it's Cur. You'll hear me interchange sometimes depending on circumstances. I tend to with Chester, Castra, I tend to favour Castra, but it's an Iron Age hill fort. It's got nothing to do with the Anglo-Saxons. They may have camped here for a while, I don't know, but it was made as a method of defence in a time of uncertainty in the Iron Age. People would have been moving the cattle up and down these hills all day long. Go get water, come back up to feed, go and get water, come back up to feed. So any sign of a raider, they would have come up here and barred the gates. And they may well have lived here as well. I don't know whether they found any huts here, but they always find huts in Iron Age hill forts, nearly always. And so they're very defensive. They wouldn't just been an earth banks, they would have had a palisade across the top, or they would have been revetted on the front to make a vertical face to the enemy. And then you just basically sit behind it on top of it, chucking your spears at the raiders. They'll soon get fed up with it and go somewhere less dangerous. But yeah, it's in the charter. Its context in the other charter that's very similar to this for Dalesford, that doesn't include this Iron Age hill fort, but includes everything else that this charter has in it. Is it talks of going down a strat and then an other strat. So there's two streets. Streets means Roman road, and I'll come onto that in a minute. But it's so street and other street, or second street, and it is on a ridge. The crossroads of the two streets is about 200-300 yards that way. So it may well have had a commanding position as far as routes across the countryside are concerned. Because they're both ridgeways, and the second one really is a ridgeway, it goes for miles across the very top. It's bending as it goes to be on the top of the hills. They're almost definitely at least Iron Age in date. Obviously, because they're in Saxon charters, even if I fail at proving the Iron Age part, they're definitely here in the Saxon period. But it's that word strat is causing me problems, because of the ones I've done in the Cotswolds recently, you will see strats being applied to important roads, but with different typologies. So you've got the salt strat at Halling. It's quite. That's not a good example. That's mainly straight. It's a little bit wobbly, but it's mainly straight. The road going along Naunton is called Strat, and that's really wobbly. Now Grundy and the other experts agree with him, say that they were Romanised ridgeways. Yeah, I haven't seen any evidence of Romanisation. I haven't seen an agger. They tend to be bendy, which is not the typology of a Roman road. But then, just as I'm starting to think that, I come across the one, the beautiful one, Begilda Strat at Swell, which is beautifully straight for miles. So it's hovering on the brink for me for my own decision making. I am an independent amateur. I can, if I want, say no, it's not true. And if I do so, I lose some of the capital, that the intellectual capital that is in this channel, if I say that Strat doesn't mean Roman road. And that means I lose some of the fun that is in my life if I do decide to do that. Some people hang on to dodgy facts, like a drunk holds onto a lamppost. They don't want to lose the big things in their lives that matter. Even if I did decide, I'm sort of thinking along the lines of Strat and Herepath are two different Venn circles, but they overlap really strongly. And in the middle, it is a state-owned, state-instructed national highway of military importance. And if you see a Strat and a Herepath and a Ridgeway, all of those things meaning that, then less Ridgeway, but those Strats that are Ridgeways, it means that that might be what was inside the heads of the people who wrote the Saxon charters. They weren't necessarily thinking Roman. It is a Roman word. Strata publican means a Roman public road, and people like Professor Grundy and others are quite happy with that. I'm less so. Having gone into the field, I'm starting to wobble. But like I say, just as I start to wobble, I come across that one at Swell that's dead straight. So it's a big problem. But both of these roads aren't dead straight. They are both ridgeways. They go over the ridge. That might be because they are important roads that people can travel for tens, hundreds of miles, therefore of national importance. Maybe that's what we're talking about with the word Strat. I don't know. I'm a bit reluctant at the moment to make the leap, but we'll see.